Welcome back to History for Sleep. This channel exists for people who enjoy learning about humanity, the past, and the quiet forces that shaped our world. If you find yourself enjoying stories like this, consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with someone who enjoys calm history. Tonight, we are going to talk about a year when the sun itself seemed to fail. There were no warnings. There were no explanations. Only a dim sky, cold summers, empty fields, and a growing fear that the world might be ending. This story begins slowly because this disaster began slowly. In the early 6th century, life followed patterns that had existed for generations. Most people alive in the year 535 believed the world was stable, predictable, and governed by familiar rhythms. Seasons arrived when expected. Crops grew when planted. Winters were cold but survivable. Summers were warm but not extreme. Across Europe, farmers worked the same land their parents and grandparents had worked. Fields were plowed by hand. Seeds were pressed into the soil with routine rather than doubt. Villages were small, closely connected, and entirely dependent on each harvest. In the Eastern Roman Empire, cities were busy and active. Markets opened each morning. Merchants traveled roads that had existed for centuries. Ships crossed the Mediterranean carrying grain, wine, oil, and ideas. In China, imperial officials kept careful records of weather and celestial events. Court historians believed the heavens communicated with rulers through signs in the sky. In Northern Europe, history lived mostly in memory. Stories passed from one generation to the next spoke of gods, winters, fate, and survival. Nowhere on Earth did anyone expect the sun to grow weak. Early in the year 536, people noticed something subtle at first. Daylight felt different. The sun still rose and set, but it no longer shone with its usual strength. At midday, shadows appeared softer. Colors looked muted. The warmth that normally accompanied sunlight felt distant, as if the sun were shining through a veil. At first, people assumed it was temporary. Weather had always been unpredictable. A cold spell or a cloudy season was not unheard of. Farmers waited. Travelers continued their journeys. Life went on. But days turned into weeks, and the sun did not recover. A Roman historian later wrote that the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon. Similar descriptions appeared in records from completely different parts of the world. In Ireland, chronicles spoke of failed harvests. In China, records described summer frost and snowfall. In the Middle East, observers wrote of dim days and unusual cold. This was not local. It was global. Summer arrived, but it did not feel like summer. Temperatures dropped. Crops struggled. Rain fell at the wrong times or not at all. Grain fields remained thin and weak. Fruit trees produced little. Grazing land failed to recover. People began to worry. In a world without modern explanations, changes in the sky carried meaning. The sun represented order and stability. If the sun could fail, then nothing felt secure. Across Christian Europe, many believed the darkness was a sign of divine anger. Sermons focused on punishment and repentance. People prayed not for prosperity but for forgiveness. In northern lands, old stories resurfaced. Tales of an endless winter that would come before the destruction of the gods spread quietly. For some, the dim sun felt like the beginning of prophecy. In China, emperors took the signs seriously. Natural disasters were believed to reflect the moral state of the ruler. A darkened sun suggested heaven was displeased. But belief did not fill empty stomachs. By late 536, food shortages were spreading. Grain stores meant to last the winter were used early. Prices rose. Poor families sold possessions to survive. Then they sold animals, then land. In some regions, entire villages were abandoned as people searched for food elsewhere. Hunger weakens the body quietly. It drains strength slowly and leaves people vulnerable to illness. Children and the elderly suffered first. This disaster unfolded not in battles or palaces, but in kitchens, fields, and roadsides. It unfolded in the silence of empty bowls and the quiet fear of parents who could not feed their families. When the year finally ended, people expected relief. But the sun did not return. The darkness continued into the next year. Another summer arrived, colder than the last. Another harvest failed. Hope became harder to hold. People adjusted their expectations. They learned to survive on less. Hunger became a constant presence rather than a temporary crisis. Only a few years later, another catastrophe arrived. A deadly plague began to spread. Modern historians believe the years of cold and famine had weakened populations, making disease far more devastating. Cities emptied. Trade collapsed. Entire regions lost large portions of their population. Empires that once felt unshakable weakened quietly. Today, evidence suggests the darkened sun was caused by massive volcanic eruptions that filled the atmosphere with ash, reflecting sunlight away from the earth. But to the people living through it, there was no explanation, only survival. The sun did not return all at once. The change was slow. Days became slightly brighter. Shadows sharpened. Summers remained cool but no longer felt entirely wrong. For those who survived, life continued with caution. Trust in the natural order had been damaged. Farmers planted seeds with less confidence. Parents watched the sky more closely. Some villages never returned. Fields once worked for centuries were reclaimed by grass and forest. Roads that once carried trade grew quiet. Survival reshaped priorities. People stored more food. Waste felt dangerous. Excess felt temporary. Religious belief deepened. Faith had been the only explanation during the dark years. For some, survival felt like protection. For others, suffering raised questions that never fully faded. In the north, memory became myth. The endless winter entered legend, not as fantasy, but as experience shaped into story. Generations passed. Children heard fragments of the story from elders. To them, it sounded distant, almost impossible. But impossibility had already happened. The world stabilized, but it was not the same world as before. Empires weakened. Power shifted. History turned quietly. Time continued its ordinary movement. Days followed nights. Seasons returned, though never exactly as before. People slept again without listening for signs. Loss remained, but life moved forward. Repetition brought comfort. Familiar tasks grounded the mind. Plowing fields, mending tools, preparing simple meals. These actions reminded people that time still moved forward, that the future still existed. Nothing returned exactly to how it had been, and nothing ever does. History often compresses suffering into dates, but suffering exists only in moments, moment after moment, night after night. As you listen now, time stretches differently. The past does not demand attention. It offers perspective. The sun once dimmed, the world once cooled, and still humanity endured. They adapted, they remembered, they continued. As the night continues around you, imagine the slow return of light long ago. Not sudden, just enough. Enough warmth to grow food. Enough light to trust the sky again. Enough hope to keep going. History is not a collection of disasters. It is a record of persistence. And persistence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It simply continues. The night deepened, and with it came the kind of quiet that allows memory to surface. Long after the worst years had passed, people still noticed small changes in the world around them. Winters felt different than they once had. Summers carried a hesitation, as if warmth itself no longer fully trusted the land. These changes were subtle, easy to overlook, but for those who had lived through the dim years, they were reminders. Memory does not fade evenly. Some details disappear quickly, while others remain sharp for a lifetime. The color of the sky during those years stayed vivid in the minds of many. Not dark like night and not bright like day, but something in between. A dullness that felt unnatural. People remembered the way sound seemed to travel differently in the cold air. How footsteps on frozen ground echoed longer. How voices carried farther in quiet fields where crops should have been growing. They remembered the taste of food when there was little of it. How even simple bread felt precious. How hunger was not always pain, but a constant emptiness that followed them through the day. As communities recovered, relationships changed. People relied on one another more carefully. Trust became valuable. Promises mattered. Shared labor mattered. In some places, cooperation deepened. In others, competition hardened. Scarcity leaves different marks on different societies. Children born after the darkest years grew up hearing warnings woven into ordinary advice. Do not waste food. Store what you can. Pay attention to the sky. Respect the land. These lessons were not taught with fear, but with quiet seriousness. Because fear had already done its work. As decades turned into centuries, the event faded further into the background of history. Written records became sparse. Oral stories shifted and softened. What had once been a lived reality became a half-remembered past. Yet the earth itself kept the memory. Trees that grew during those years bore the evidence in their rings. Ice formed far from where people lived trapped particles from distant eruptions. Layers of time stacked quietly, holding the truth until someone learned how to read it. For most of human history, no one did. People lived their lives unaware that the planet itself had once shifted so dramatically. They faced new challenges, new climates, new uncertainties. And still they adapted. Human history is not a straight line of progress. It moves unevenly, shaped by forces both visible and invisible. Wars, ideas, discoveries, and also cold, darkness, and silence. The year the sun dimmed was not remembered because it changed laws or borders. It was remembered because it changed expectations. It reminded humanity that the world does not guarantee comfort, only continuation. As you rest now, the world around you is stable enough to allow sleep. That stability is the result of countless generations who endured uncertainty before you. They lived through years when the sun failed to shine as it should. And they continued anyway. If your thoughts drift, let them. If sleep arrives, allow it. There is no urgency in this story. History unfolds whether it is watched or not. The sun has dimmed before. It has always returned. And so has humanity. The return was never dramatic. There was no moment when the sky announced that the danger had passed. No clear boundary between hardship and safety. Life simply continued, and over time, the absence of crisis became noticeable. People stopped watching the horizon as closely. They stopped counting every cloud. They trusted the coming of morning again. That trust had to be rebuilt slowly. In the years after the darkness, people spoke less about certainty and more about preparation. They understood that the world could change without warning, and that survival depended on flexibility rather than strength alone. Tools were repaired instead of discarded. Clothing was mended carefully. Knowledge was shared more openly. Skills mattered more than possessions. These habits shaped the generations that followed. Children learned not just how to farm or trade, but how to endure. They were taught patience. They were taught observation. They were taught to respect patterns while accepting that patterns could break. The landscape itself carried scars that only careful eyes could see. In some places, forests expanded where farmland had once been. In others, soil quality shifted, favoring different crops. These changes influenced settlement, travel, and trade for centuries. Without realizing it, humanity adjusted its course. The past often leaves its mark this way. Not through single events, but through accumulated responses. Choices made quietly, repeated daily, shaping the future more than any single decision ever could. As empires rose and fell in later centuries, they did so on a foundation altered by earlier hardship. Populations had redistributed. Resources had shifted. The balance of power had changed in ways that were no longer obvious. History moved forward, carrying the weight of what had happened, even when no one remembered why. The people of the 6th century did not know they were living through a defining moment. They only knew that the world felt uncertain, and that survival required attention and care. This is how most of history is experienced, not as a turning point, but as a present that demands endurance. As the night continues around you, consider how many quiet moments like this have passed unrecorded. How many people lived, struggled, adapted, and rested without knowing their experiences would shape the future. The story of the dimmed sun is not unique. It is one example among many, a reminder that humanity has always lived in conversation with the world around it, listening, responding, continuing. There is comfort in that continuity. The sun rises, the sun sets. Even when it falters, it returns. And humanity, in its quiet persistence, does the same. There is nothing else required of you now. Only rest, only listening, only the gentle passing of time. As time moved forward, the memory of fear softened into understanding. What had once felt like punishment or prophecy gradually became part of a larger story about survival. People no longer spoke of the darkened sun with panic. Instead, they spoke of it with a calm respect, as one might speak of a powerful storm long past. They understood now that the world could change without intention, not because of anger, not because of meaning, but because nature follows its own rhythms. This realization altered how people related to their surroundings. The land was no longer seen as something to dominate, but something to observe. Signs were watched more closely. Seasons were felt rather than assumed. Farmers noticed subtle differences in soil and air. Sailors paid attention to winds that once felt familiar. Shepherds learned the behavior of animals during unusual cold or heat. These small observations became knowledge. Knowledge became tradition. Tradition became survival. As centuries passed, civilizations expanded again. Cities grew. Trade routes reopened and stretched farther than before. People carried goods, stories, and beliefs across long distances, unaware that many of the paths they traveled had been shaped by earlier collapse. Roads existed where populations had shifted. Ports thrived where trade had once vanished. Power settled where stability had slowly returned. The past shaped the present invisibly. Most people never sensed it. They lived their lives focused on immediate concerns. Family, or community, rest, and that was enough. History does not require awareness to have impact. It moves regardless. As you listen now, the idea of a dimmed sun may feel distant, almost unreal, something that belongs entirely to another world. Yet the people who lived through it experienced it the same way you experience your own life. One day at a time. They woke up. They noticed the sky. They ate what they could. They rested when they were able. They hoped. Hope did not disappear during those years. It changed shape. It became quieter, smaller, more practical. Hope became the belief that tomorrow might be slightly better than today. That belief carried them forward. The same belief carries humanity forward now. Not because the future is guaranteed, but because continuation is possible. As the hours of night pass, let that idea settle gently. The world has been uncertain before, and still people endured. They adapted. They rested. They continued. There is no lesson to memorize here. No warning to fear. Only perspective. Only the reminder that stability is precious, and rest is part of endurance. The story does not end. It never does. It simply moves forward quietly, moment by moment, just as you do now. In the quiet that followed, life returned to its most basic shape. Morning arrived. Work was done. Evening came again. These cycles, once disrupted, slowly regained their place at the center of human experience. The return of routine did not erase what had happened, but it allowed people to live alongside it. Routine is a form of healing. It gives the mind something steady to hold on to. When the world feels uncertain, repetition creates calm. The same walk each day, the same task each season, the same sounds in the evening. For those who had lived through the years of darkness, routine became a quiet promise. A reminder that even when the world changes, life continues to offer structure. Over time, the story of the dimmed sun lost its sharp edges. Fear softened into reflection. Reflection became wisdom. People no longer spoke about the event as if it might happen again tomorrow. They spoke about it as something that had happened once, long ago, and had been survived. Survival became the message passed down. Not heroism, not victory, just endurance. The earth continued its slow rhythms. Volcanic ash settled. Skies cleared. Temperatures stabilized. Nature too adjusted and moved forward. Humanity remained part of that system, never separate from it. As generations passed, new challenges replaced old ones. Floods, droughts, conflicts, disease. Each era faced its own uncertainties, often unaware that previous generations had faced different versions of the same struggle. The lesson of the darkened sun was not written in textbooks. It was carried in habits, in caution, in preparation, in respect for forces that could not be controlled. As you listen now, these forces feel distant. The room around you is safe. The night is calm. There is nothing pressing for your attention. That calm is not accidental. It exists because countless people before you learned how to endure uncertainty and continue anyway. They rested when they could. They worked when they had to. They trusted that time would move forward, even when the present felt unstable. Time did move forward. It always does. And now it moves gently around you. There is no need to stay alert. No need to listen for danger. No need to watch the sky. The story is here simply to accompany you. If sleep comes, let it. If wakefulness lingers, that is fine too. History does not rush. It waits patiently, just as the world does. The sun will rise again. It always has. And with it comes another ordinary day, shaped by all the quiet moments that came before. As the ordinary days returned, they carried a different weight. Not heavier, but more meaningful. Each sunrise felt slightly more noticed. Each warm afternoon felt less assumed. People paid attention to comfort in ways they had not before, because comfort had once been absent. Warmth became something to appreciate rather than expect. Light became something to notice rather than ignore. Food became something to respect. These changes did not come from philosophy. They came from experience. Experience teaches without explanation. The people who lived through the dim years rarely spoke about them directly unless asked. When they did, their words were simple. They did not exaggerate. They did not dramatize. They said the summers were cold. They said the crops failed. They said many people did not survive. And then they went quiet. Silence carried more truth than detail ever could. As time passed, the world slowly filled with new stories. New memories layered over old ones. The past receded, not because it was unimportant, but because life requires space for the present. Yet even as memory faded, influence remained. Settlements had shifted. Trade routes had changed. Power had reorganized itself quietly, following the paths of survival rather than ambition. History often credits leaders for change, but much of what shapes the world comes from moments when ordinary people adjust to new realities. They move. They adapt. They choose survival over tradition. The year the sun dimmed forced such choices on a global scale. And humanity responded not with collapse, but with endurance. As centuries continued to pass, the climate event of the 6th century became invisible to everyday life. Its effects blended into the background of history, inseparable from countless other influences. This is how most defining moments disappear. Not erased but absorbed. The earth remembers even when people forget. Ice remembers. Trees remember. Soil remembers. Long after stories fade, the planet holds evidence of what has been. And long after individuals pass, humanity carries forward the adaptations born from those moments. As you rest now, you are part of that long continuation. You exist because others endured uncertainty before you. They lived through cold summers and dim skies. They adjusted. They continued. You are not required to do anything with this knowledge. It is enough to let it pass through your thoughts gently. The past does not need to be held tightly. It can drift, just as your thoughts can drift now. The world outside moves slowly. Time continues. There is nothing urgent here. Only the quiet understanding that history is not distant. It lives within the present, shaping it softly, patiently, without demand. And as the night carries on, that understanding can fade into rest, leaving only calm behind.